Nice.
Oh man, that was intense.
Good evening. I call this Iowa City Community School Board meeting on Tuesday, October 22nd, 2019 to order. My name is Janet Godwin, and I want to thank those in the audience, those watching on YouTube, and those following on Twitter for joining us tonight. I'll start by introducing those at the table with me. To my right, Superintendent Steve Murley, Directors Ruthina Malone, Phil Hemingway, Lori Rotland. To my left, Paul Ressler, Sean Eystone, JP Clausen, and Kim Colvin, Recording Secretary. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak, they need to complete a speaker form found at the table in the lobby and turn it in. During community comment, persons may speak to the board about topics relevant to the district. All community comment directed at non-agenda items and agenda items shall take place at the beginning of the meeting during the community comment section of the agenda. And we have two community commenters. First up, Charlie Eastham, followed by Julie Van Dyke.
Thank you, President Goodwin. Members of the board, I wanted to talk briefly about the crisis intervention team item, which is on your work session for later this evening, and I'll try to be helpful. As you know, the Equity Committee, which I've been a member of for quite some time, has urged you and the district generally to be very deliberate in looking at disaggregated data and trying to understand when there are equity issues in the policies and practices that we're following as a district. I think it's, in my view, it's reasonable to say that the crisis intervention team or approach that you're considering undertaking may have some equity issues. There may be some disproportionality in students who are brought into that team assessment process. And I would ask that if we could consider, as we develop the full crisis response team paradigm and practice, if we could build into that a couple of things. One, a deliberate way of gathering ongoing data about whether or not disproportionality is in fact occurring, maybe occurring in the work of the team members as they receive threats, or assessments and tips and so forth. Tips is not a good word. Okay. And so build that assessment into the work of the team and the job description of the crisis response coordinator. I would suggest that's that is a crucial part in putting this team approach together. Okay? And then the second thing I would like to ask is that we ask ourselves, so what will happen if, let's say the board gets reports every month of what the work of the team has been and who they've been working with. And after 3 months, the board gets a report that says the team has worked 10 students, 5 of them are African American or Hispanic students. So what do we do then? That's 50% of what the team who the team's working with, way more than the proportion of those students in the general population. So can we ask ourselves in advance, what would happen if that were the case? Maybe it's not the case, but if it were the case, what would happen? I'm not going to suggest an answer right now, but I think that's something that I hope we consider as we go forward here. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Julie?
When was this grant submitted? Anybody know? I don't. The police letter's there, it's dated around May 23rd, I think, through May 30th of 2019. There's one page in here that matters to me, and it should matter to everyone in this school district. And that page is the page where in this grant, which you've finally shown us in October, almost the mid to end of October, when we first heard about the grant that you'd even submitted, it was July 23rd. And we were told in writing that the district couldn't provide a copy of the grant to a board director or other people in the public because you submitted it online. One page in here matters. Project and budget narrative, school safety planning efforts. The Iowa City Community School District has been vigilant in school safety planning and assessment efforts. School safety is a top priority. I was shot at in the West High parking lot when I was a junior, and I graduated in 1984. Where's the district's policy on what happens public on the school district page that tells us what a school and what the administration is supposed to do when there's a gun on campus? Where's that? You're not vigilant. You haven't done anything. Despite current budget cuts and a hiring freeze, ICSD can boast numerous safety-enhancing systems, boasting about it. For example, this year, more than 30 significant reports of students planning to hurt themselves or others were made through the use of our anonymous reporting platform, Say Something. So you're patting yourself on the back for unsubstantiated rumors, and you're targeting those children based on unsubstantiated rumors. That's dangerous. In summer of 2018, the school board enacted a school safety advisory committee. He put everybody on there. Where was the public, and why weren't those meetings in the public, with the public invited to each and every one of them? The 2 meetings where public were invited to make comments, the reports, the meeting minutes, notes from those meetings say not one person asked a question. So here's the thing that just keels me over in this grant, and it makes me really, really sick. And I hope there's a special place in hell for the people that had the gall to put this in here. It says, although the ICCSD exemplary in its commitment to school safety, we are finding there's a lack of coordination, resources, and expertise in addressing report concerns. Then there's 3 lines of blacked out, redacted information. What's the only thing you'd redact on a federal grant? Student information. 3 black lines. For those of us embedded in this work, we feel compelled to never let this happen again. This is about Sam, the 12-year-old girl that killed herself after you and Gabe Cook, the secondary schools liaison for the Iowa City Police Department, who is married to the principal of Southeast Junior High, targeted this girl as a threat or a potential threat based on rumors. Did you go to the Grantwood AAA and ask them for an IEP evaluation for her? Because she was a cutter, and she had significant diagnoses that were quite visible, and that's what you're supposed to do by law, isn't it? When you have a student that's in danger and has visible diagnoses that could qualify them for an IEP, did you do that? No, you targeted her. You targeted her just like this grant is a target. And this grant will get people killed. It will get children killed. Because when you go and you send someone they've never met before, a threat assessment team at them, what's that gonna make them feel? It's gonna scare the hell out of them. You think they're gonna trust you? You think they're gonna come to that? All of this money should be going towards teachers, paras, counselors, and other school staff that can build relationships with children who are frightened and who are stressed, because those are the people that can actually help them. Your
Thank you, Julie.
unsubstantiated rumor
Thank you, Julie.
and this grant
Time's
is
up.
going to get children
Time's
killed.
up, Julie. Thank you. Moving on to agenda approval, I would like to request that the board consider shifting discussion item number 2 to follow the consent agenda.
Well, I was going to make a suggestion as well on that. I would like to get the discussion on the playgrounds moved up too, but I'm assuming you want to put Joe up or first so it gets him off the clock faster?
And it's just a very, very fast update.
Sure.
And then
Well, I was wanting to push up the playground committee report because we have community members
Bet.
here and do that. And
Yep.
then you could go with Hoover and
Yep,
the
so
rest of it.
we'll, the proposal is to move discussion item 2 following consent agenda, followed by action item on the playground committee recommendations. Then we would move into the rest of the agenda as it's currently ordered. Is there a motion to approve that agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open.
Thank you. Consent agenda. Phil, and I think Sean looked at bills this period.
Yes. We had $3,689,000 worth of expenditures. The vast majority was coming out of the capital funds account. I know that Sean brought up some good questions about locker and their expense. I found a couple of things with the repairs on our garbage truck, which, you know, we don't maintain very well, and it's costing us. And there were some Terracon concerns that I had with that contract, which have been ongoing. But other than that, everything seems to be. If there's anything you want to comment on, Sean? Or?
No, I was just trying to, ascertain if all those lockers that were pulled out and then new lockers put in, if it was because the remodel and they were having to move, or if they were just at the end of their life and needed to be replaced. And it kind of sounds like maybe a little bit of both.
So.
Okay. Thank you, Phil and Sean. Any other items from consent agenda and directors would like to pull? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Kim, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with Directors Rotland, Ressler, Godwin, Clausen, Malone, and Eystone voting yea, and Director Hemingway voting nay.
Thank you. Now we'll go into the item on the Hoover Elementary School Supreme Court decision. Just wanted to have a quick item for the benefit of the public. The Hoover ballot measure was considered by the Supreme Court, who ruled unanimously to dismiss the case. We've had consulting with the auditor's office. It's too late in the voting cycle to change the ballots. And so what the auditor's office is saying is that any votes that have been cast during early voting will not be counted on this ballot measure, and that going forward, voters do not need to vote on the ballot measure. So just wanted to state that publicly in case anyone had questions about what the voting process would be for that matter. So I think at this point, this case is considered closed with a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court. And I think we've got the clear direction around voting going forward. Any comments or questions from directors?
Well, I would just say that I don't agree with it, but it is the Supreme Court, it is the law, and that's how they ruled on it. I guess I had always felt that the community had a right, especially when they had done all of the remedies that were prescribed by them available to them, but it is what it is, and that's the ruling. I've always felt that that $14 million asset was of greater value than a parking lot, but that's my opinion, and the Supreme Court says we can't vote on it.
Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to our action item on the Playground Committee recommendations. We discussed this
Yes.
last meeting.
Yep.
The committee
And,
presented.
Right, and like I say, it was a lot of time and effort by many on staff. Started with Kingsley, went with Chase, and the last man standing is Ben Grimm. And we do have members of the community that were part of that playground committee, and Dwayne was on it, excuse me, I didn't want to leave it, and Jeff. But I'd like Bob Porter and Jenny Mettenmeyer, and I don't see Ellen, but if they would stand and be recognized for all the work that they did. Come on, Bob, you can stand up, all right. And there's a lot of information in there. As I stated before, when we were working on the IPM integrated pest management work, we had other examples to follow and to model and to take bits and pieces from, and we were really going out there in front, and Ben has pretty much become an expert on this stuff, and the matrix that has been developed is really, I think, going to be a compass for the board and administrators to follow. And talking with Ben before the meeting, I mean, the first time going through with that is going to be difficult because it's the first time going through and all the moving pieces in that, but it's a living, breathing document. The committee will be having annual updates and continual learning. There's also an educational component with this approval that I would encourage board members that stay on to avail themselves to it, to get more educated in it, because it'll only be as good as those that are following it and going and pursuing it and pushing our inclusive play policy. And it will give us, and in talking with Ben as well, it has the ability to kind of give us a score or a rating. So it'll be much easier for us when these plans come to us to see, okay, this one grades out a little higher than some of our other ones, so we're going in the right direction, or if somehow it comes back a little bit less, then we can try and address that that way. But I'm very proud of the work that staff did, and the community should be very appreciative for the time and effort they put into it. And we did put a substantial amount of capital into it as well. But I think we've got a great product, and one that I think others will look to model after us. And I hope that we work with our municipal partners and with our playgrounds going forward and share this information and kind of be leaders in this inclusive play and universal design.
I'll echo my thanks to the committee and the fantastic work of district staff, community members, board members who participated, and the consultants that came in and helped as well. I know I'm probably forgetting some folks, but the work of the committee really is fantastic. I just echo everything Phil has just said. It's a fantastic baseline for us moving forward. And I reviewed the materials. I don't have any questions or requests for changes. I think it's extraordinarily thorough, the work of the team, and I'll be voting yes tonight when we take this to vote.
I just want to mention, it was about 2 years ago, we were taking up the topic of playgrounds at an operations committee meeting. And, at that point, none of this work was done, and it looked like this, pie in the sky, we're never going to get there. And I just think we sort of threw out the idea, okay, let's assume that the end game, however many years out, is that every playground is completely inclusive and everything's exactly what we want. How are we going to get there? How can we stepwise build? Because we know we can't do it all in year one. And I think this work and the plan and all of the references and everything else is that stepwise plan where we can take off little bites as we go and eventually get to that, far off into the future kind of target that we all had. So from that very early on creating of the playground committee, from that basic thought process, I think has been amazing. So
well, and we had many community members and also staff members, and I should not forget to mention Ann Langenfeld was kind of with us all the way through. That way, and we had many community members come and be with us, and there was a lot of passionate people on both sides working to do the best we can for our students and our community, and I'm proud of what we were able to accomplish. And we do have a great internal resource in Ben with the training that he's received and everything that way. So we should rely on him going forward too as helping us with direction on that.
Any comments, Chase, or any comments from directors before we move forward? Anything to add?
I would just
echo what Phil and the rest of the board members said, and thank you to the board for their support and leadership. Phil, for your stewardship and helping us facilitate this over the last couple of years. I agree with Sean. I think this is the blueprint for the future. And I don't think it can be overstated enough to say that we really are truly on the leading edge of this work. And we talk about the great things that we do here and how others aspire to be like Iowa City. And I think this is one of those examples we can use where we truly are setting the trend for others to follow, not only in the state, but across the nation. So thank you for your support of this work as well.
Anything else? Is there a motion to approve the recommendations?
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Kim, we're ready to vote.
Online voting is open. All votes have been cast, and the motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Yay, that's awesome. Okay, thank you. Moving on to our presentation tonight on the February 3rd caucus facility use.
Yes, good evening.
I'm like, who's doing this? Thanks.
It's actually going to be more of an update tonight than a presentation, simply because I don't want to get out ahead of the parties. To tell you where we are right now, with our construction, it's made a little bit unique on the facilities that are available in February 2020 rather than in the past. And so where we are is Dwayne and I have walked a couple of our properties with representatives of both the Republican and the Democratic parties looking at spaces. We have a couple more of those visits still to go, but as of today, they're looking to use approximately 18 of our sites. We provide those spaces free of charge for the caucuses in February, and we'll continue to work with them. And then once that list is finalized and they're ready to push that out, we'll come back and give that full list to the board so that you're aware. But Dwayne and I have both been working with them as we make sure they have the space that they need, because if you've ever been part of a caucus, you know they need more than just one room. And so as you look at a place like West High School, for example, where there's multiple parts of the building that are under construction, it might not be as easy to set up on the front end as it would have been in the past. And so we're trying to do our due diligence to make sure that they have not only the rooms they need, but access. It is February in Iowa, after all, and so to make things as convenient as we can for the public. But we're on track. We have some visits hopefully set up for in the next couple of weeks to some other sites.
It's a great educational opportunity, and Iowans are a hardy breed, and that's why we have our caucuses in February. I know I won't disclose what party I'm with, but normally a living room is enough for the caucuses I've attended in Graham Township and such. But they are great grassroots political incubators, and I think this year could be historic with the turnout, is what people are talking, and it's a great opportunity for our students as well to go and attend and witness this first. It's a privilege we have in Iowa, and we should make sure that everyone avails themselves to it. And I am going to butcher a joke, but there was a joke, and I don't know if it came from Maine or Iowa, but someone asked about what do you feel about that president, and I said, I don't know, I've only talked to them 3 times. So it's always, when I talk with other friends I have around the country, that they're just amazed at the access we have to the next leadership of our country here in Iowa. So I appreciate everything that you're doing to help with get that done, and you know, they are the community's buildings, and giving them the ability to use them for this purpose is great, and it's also a chance to showcase what we've done.
Anything else? Thank you, Chase, for the update. Appreciate it. Moving on, we will go to the mascot change discussion item. Is that Matt?
That is me. Hi, everybody. It's pretty straightforward. I think outlined there in the document, the junior high principals had approached us here, what was already last summer or spring ago, and asked for some alignments on their mascot, similar to on the east side of town, how we have Southeast Little Hawks and City High Little Hawks. And so they would like to replicate that same thing at North Central and Northwest, be the Lightning and the Trojans there instead of the Vikings and the Knights. And so it's not an action item, but I think we wanted to bring it to you for awareness and see if there was any strong opposition or strong feelings about moving in that direction before we headed that way.
Well, I don't know. I was, one thing I was kind of concerned that, you know, two things that I'd put on the agenda for tonight's meeting got bumped, and we were talking about mascots, which I think is kind of up to the principals of the schools, and they can go ahead and do what they want. But I do like the safe sex aspects of the Trojan mascot at the high school level, and the junior high level. I think that'll send a positive image. And lightning, I have a concern with because of its random violence and death toll, but maybe that's something complimentary for a mascot to be, random and violent. But I think that we've got bigger fish to fry.
I just have a couple questions. We were talking about this beforehand, a couple of us, because I was like, I don't understand it. I don't really know why, but I don't really have strong feelings one way or the other. The only two questions I have is, one, are the kids on board with it? I mean, the kids asking for it, and then my other question is, you know, is there any thought to what happens when it's not, you know, 3 junior highs and 3 high schools? Or if we don't end up with a clean feeder system, which is out here, that I'm just going to throw it out there to make people antsy in their seats.
Yeah, I think we did talk about all those things, that's kind of a long-term issue, that what's right in front of us right now is the chance to build that camaraderie and kind of that image of, you know, that they are connected now and that it is a clean feeder system now for the most part. And as far as the kids being for it, I mean, anecdotally, we've talked about things where, you know, even down to the level of if they try to sell apparel, right? I mean, that's a pretty difficult aspect, you know, if something says Vikings and they'll use it for 2 years and then they're onto the Trojans, that they could just kind of brand, you know, the school community and identify with the high school that they'll be a part of. And so, not right or wrong, I don't think, you know, but on some level, that consistency that I think they see at Southeast and City, you know, with the Little Hawks and having the same mascot. They've already done some proactive things as regards to the principal when they bought uniforms and just printed either Northwest or North Central on them, you know, without the other logo. We've checked into overhead costs if there's anything substantial, you know, where a mascot is or anything that way. We don't really need to do any substantial facility changes or logo changes that way on gym floors or anything like that. So I think it's really just to build that community aspect is really what they see it as a benefit of, and trying to do that 7-12 and use some common language for the students.
My only comment in general is I, you know, prefer mascots to stay away from anything human. It just avoids any kind of thing. But, you know, I don't think there's a lot of Trojans complaining about how they're represented on Earth. So, but I certainly don't have a problem with them being consistent and changing their names and crossing bridges when we come to it down the road.
I know when I was researching it, I was looking into it, and there's real question on Greek mythology. Does it actually happen? Was there actually a Trojan War?
No,
and
they found Troy.
Well,
it's there.
No, there's some stuff out there that argues it. So, but
it's in Turkey.
Trojan War conspiracy theorists, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have any big feelings of if the student populations are excited about this. It's not going to incur a lot of additional expense. You know, creating that community 7-12 makes sense to me, so I'm fine. Any other comments from directors? Okay, thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, and thanks for coming tonight to hear the conversation. So next up, agenda setting. We're looking at a November 12th meeting. Sorry, I skipped the. Oh no, I skipped the P&G agenda. Ruthina, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, it's good, and that's the agenda.
Legislative priorities, district driver policies and practices, current guideline 424, proposed IASB policy 403.6, 400 series. So that's what's on P&G for the 29th. Then it's the board agenda on the 12th, and we have a consent agenda, public hearings, we've got presentations, a number of them, teaching and learning reports, annual progress report, annual school improvement advisory committee report, annual curriculum review report, annual wellness policy report, and we'll see a quarterly financial report, and under discussion, we'll see enrollment numbers. And then under action items, we've got AEA Director, District 3, District 6, and that is our agenda, and we will be recognizing Director Rotman for her 4 years of service and amazing work on the board. Anything else for the 12th? It's a busy, these reports go fairly quickly, but it is a lot of content for us to read ahead of time, so.
So, of the presentations, the annual progress report and the enrollment report, is that on there?
The enrollment report actually is moved to December because the
Okay.
state is having some issues with their certification of enrollment, and in particular with their special ed data.
Okay.
So they've told us that we're likely to actually get the final certified numbers December 8th. So we'll have those, but we should be ready to go. The last cleanup that they'll have will be the special ed numbers, but the rest of them will be ready to go.
Never
But I will
mind.
be sharing the enrollment numbers that we have and look at our demographic numbers
Okay.
at part of that update.
I was just going to say, those are two of the biggest reports we see during the year, and I would propose that they not be in the same meeting. In
And
a
they are
prior
not.
draft of this
Yeah.
agenda, they were in the same meeting.
They were.
So I appreciate actually having that moved, because I think both reports require a lot of digging in, and I would not want to short either one, just because we've got so many.
And I still feel that the driving policy needs to be discussed at the board table and not at a P&G meeting that isn't televised or doesn't have a community comment or public viewing. And I'm not trying to feel slighted or anything, but I am retiring as well. And
Oh,
I
Can I
would think.
comment on that? Lori's not going to be here on the 26th, Phil, and that's
Oh,
why we're,
okay.
that's why
Okay.
we're noting her on the
Well,
12th.
well,
I didn't mean to cause you concern.
Not that I wanted to steal from
No, but
Lori
no,
either.
no. You,
No,
But,
I did not
I-
know that this was not going to be our last meeting, so.
Okay,
I have plane tickets,
Heaven
unfortunately.
forbid, no, but
Oh.
if, I was going to say, if this was when we were going to discuss our board services, that I'm still here.
You're still here, and we will.
I will be
we
here
will-
till the end of my term.
And thank you, and again, we're just scheduling matters there.
In between G and H, public hearings and presentations, can we add policy review since we will have or is that always the second meeting?
We can add it.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. And that gets, I mean, P&G will come and report back out their committee work, so some of those conversations will be public and people have a chance to comment and hear the conversation.
And I think still there needs to be a discussion too on how board members have access to legal counsel. And if there's questions, I think it should happen at the board table and not happen in emails after meetings. So if there's questions on a discussion on why we would not have that as an agenda item, I think we do need to discuss it now.
Well, then I would reiterate what I sent you an email and just a clarification on exactly what you want to talk about.
Well, we're talking about when board members can direct legal counsel toward other board members and how it should be when we direct legal counsel, it should be by action of all 7 and not by 1 or 2.
When we direct legal counsel,
And I think that should be a discussion, and it should be at the board table.
But, I mean, it's hard to agree to do this discussion if I don't really understand or know what you're talking about. I mean, I don't think I'm the only one, maybe I am, but that's why I asked what exactly you wanted to
Yeah.
discuss.
I mean, I'm a little confused too, just, I'm not trying to be coy, it's just, we get legal counsel when we have real estate transactions or, sort of legal matters that we need counsel to advise the board on.
Yes,
There was-
and I believe there was a time when there was a legal opinion on me, and there was discussion. I've seen it in the bills. And I wasn't a party to that, and I didn't know that there was a vote on it, and I didn't know that there was a discussion.
I
So
actually
I think
don't know.
I think we need to, if I am mistaken, that's on me, but I think we have to have an airing of what board members can and can't do when it comes to legal counsel.
You know, honestly, to me, that sounds more like a board retreat item, and that's a public forum, that's a public meeting, people can come, we publish the agenda. If you're talking about board members, what they can and cannot do, that feels like a discussion around board norms and that kind of thing. That would be my recommendation, is to put it on a board retreat when we talk about norms. Any other comments or ideas for agenda items for the 12th? We also have an Ed Committee meeting at Northwest Junior High on the 19th, where we'll be covering AVID. And I think that's all we have for agenda setting tonight. And
Question on that one. JP, will that focus mainly on secondary or just AVID in general?
I mean, this is coming from staff who want to present, and so I'm guessing they're going to present on all of AVID, but I personally would have the most questions at secondary, but I'm at an AVID school,
Yeah.
so I know elementary, but I would assume, who's going to do that presentation? Do we know, Steve?
So it'll be primarily the Northwest team and based around the Northwest implementation, similar to how we handled PBIS, even though we do PBIS at all of our secondary schools and we're working towards that Liberty was kind of the focus when we did it out at Liberty. So we can have the general conversation about AVID implementation overall, but we'll be kind of highlighting the Northwest program.
And maybe they could be prepared to just talk about the transition from elementary to junior high and what that looks like, and also maybe specifically for kids who are coming in, well, I guess it was maybe a question, kids coming in from non-AVID schools and how that looks, whether they can participate or not.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely hit on those things. Yep.
Yeah, that's good, because we've covered elementary, and I just want to make sure that we
Yeah.
were going to touch on secondary for sure.
I think that, so, between Brady and staff, they've sort of strategically placed these at the schools who are doing the presentations and where it's happening, so.
okay, anything else in agenda setting? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.